everybody to the Friday edition, July 4th special of the Daily Cheat Sheet. Happy Independence Day, everybody out there. And thank you, everybody. This is one heck of an Independence Day, and we are joined by Mr. Daniel J. Grand. You had to put Daniel J. Grand in there like Donald J. Trump. Good for you, Maga Man, and thank you for being here. Welcome.
My pleasure, guys. Good to be back again.
And of course, we're here with the dude and Golan Ramraz, all the way from Barcelona, who's celebrating Independence Day because he is an American citizen. And I love that you don't consider yourself an expat.
That's absolutely right. Well, because I own a house in New York and lived in California for 20-something years, and I can't shake that part of it. I am a patriot through and through.
Well said. I want to get to this right away. I had this thought go on. 9 years. President Trump has been under investigation, impeachment, indictment, impeachment, persecution, prosecution for 9 years. This is the first 4th of July. I think he hasn't been under some sort of investigation. And by proxy, his supporters aren't under investigation. And I was thinking to myself, why does this big, beautiful bill feel so good that got passed on July 3rd? It's not perfect, but it's beautiful. And there's something special about, July 4th about fighting against tyranny, right? And he has been against a tyrannical government and a tyrannical deep state for the better part of 10 years almost at this point. And we're free.
Yeah, look, it's 9 years of people trying to take him down, 9 years of people calling him every name in the book, from fascist to Russian puppet and everything in between. I mean, let's be real. The win is he's president again, so we don't really have to say much more than that. But I think what we really notice here is that he's not the one who's out of touch with the people. All the people who are trying to undermine him, all the people who are trying to prosecute him, all the people who keep coming up with reasons to throw jabs left and right are the ones who are missing the point. They are missing why he's popular. They're missing why he is representative of the American mentality right now. And they're missing why he keeps winning. Once upon a time, Americans wanted to win. We wanted to be winners. And little by little, over the last number of years, we've gotten into this victim mentality. Not necessarily us, but I mean kind of a large swath of the American population, and certainly the people who have been trying to take Trump down, have gotten into this victim mentality. They define themselves by what they don't have. They define themselves by how they can claim victimhood. And then there's this guy that comes along that is tall and handsome and rich and successful. And if he's not successful enough for them, then he keeps coming up with new things that make him more successful. And he's a best-selling author and on and on and on and on. And then president twice, probably the best governmental comeback in history. And they look at him like, well, he's not a victim. How come he gets to be in control? Victimhood is what wins you things. They are out of touch with where we want to go and where we used to be. That's the bottom line.
I love it when you call them the Victim Olympics.
Yeah.
So accurate.
No, and I think it's extremely well said. And man, I know you haven't always been a Trump supporter. I mean, we've had many conversations on this topic. But I think to the bigger point, this isn't always about Trump. It's about the American people. It's about the people like us that or the silent majority. I was never silent, so I don't put myself in that class. But it's about everybody out there during all these times. And you didn't have to just be a Trump supporter. You could be somebody that said something that got canceled. It could be anybody that got beaten down by a tyrannical government and deep state today or yesterday could finally exhale for a moment. And we should be celebrating this. I love how it's being phrased that it was a narrow victory. There's only 220 of them, okay? And there's 212 on the other side. Any victory will be narrow.
Do you know another way, by the way, to phrase a narrow victory? A victory.
well put. Men?
For the guy that obviously he was under attack and he didn't have to do all this stuff, and he put his life and liberty at risk to run for president, especially again, first time around and then the second time around. Anyone else, I don't know anyone that would have stuck it through. I think everybody else would have cut a deal with the machine, and they would have just said, you know what, stop prosecuting me. I promise I won't run for president, which is what they wanted. They wanted him to back out. This guy, with everything else that we're seeing, especially with the Israel Palestine conflict, all of that stuff, the most logical explanation is usually the explanation. So when Hamas is telling the Gazan people don't go to the food centers to get food, and then they go and they get shot, it's probably Hamas shooting them because they're the ones that don't want them to go, and it's the Israelis that are actually feeding them. And with Trump running for president, there's so many excuses and things that people said as to why he's doing it. But the most logical answer is that he really thinks that he could do better for the country, and he loves the country. He wants to do what he thinks, implement his vision, which so far has been working really well. The economy is booming, the border is secure, streets are getting safer. I mean, on every single level, the guy is just ticking those boxes. So maybe he is an egotistical maniac and all that other stuff. Sure, you need that in order to have the balls to run. But at the same time, he believes he could do a really good job at it. And he is doing a great job at it. And all those people that were saying he's so thin skinned and da da da, and we used to see him at Fighting with Rosie O'Donnell at 4 a.m. on Twitter. He's been a complete 180. This guy's showing resilience, and he's showing that he has thick skin, and he's able to overcome slights and people that have slighted him and all of that and bring them into the fold. So we're seeing a different Trump, but it's also a polar opposite. It's a polar opposite to everything that the media has been telling you that this guy is. And one thing that I'd like to clear up before I go is that I didn't think Trump could win. I thought that the well was so poisoned by the Democrats. It didn't matter if he was right or wrong. I just thought that the narrative got away so far with this insurrection nonsense and all the other stuff. I didn't think he could do it.
And
I
who
thought
told you otherwise?
Judah did. Me and Judah used to have big arguments, and I said DeSantis is just a sanitized version of Trump. He should be the guy that runs with this thing because he doesn't have the baggage that the Democrats just foisted onto Trump and his campaign. But to Trump's credit and his campaign's credit, they pulled it off. And boy, did they do a job pulling that off.
I have to say that just even the narrative that Trump is thin-skinned is so strange to me. Even if you don't like the guy, even if you are a Democrat, even if you think he's Satan, to say he's thin-skinned is such a weird thing to say. Do you know anybody else who for 9 years put up with non-stop investigations, impeachment trials, media hit pieces, late night mockery, tech censorship, literal FBI raids, indictments, impeachments, and this and that? And that. Literally, I'm sorry,
that's
bullets? How about bullets?
No,
And
no, no,
there's
but
Their
still,
narrative. It worked with their narrative because every time
that's
they would show
exactly
him on
right.
TV, so we all agree that this administration has a communication issue. They're not able to get the message out, and it's not because Caroline Leavitt is bad. She's excellent. It's that the media just do not talk about the highlights. They don't talk about the facts on the ground. They'll find one guy who may or may not be a citizen that got harassed by some ICE agents, and they're like, look, this whole thing is terrible. They won't find the mother of the kids that were killed by illegal aliens. Those people they won't find. So when the narrative gets away that every time you see Trump, he's on the podium and he was screaming at the news, you're fake and you're an idiot and you're a fatso or whatever, it worked with what they were saying. It fed right into it where they were like, look, he's thin-skinned, he's fighting with everybody. I knew a lot of people that were not anti-Trump and not pro-Trump. They were just sick of the chaos. They viewed it as chaos. And the media and the Democrats did a really good job of painting him as the chaotic president. He doesn't know what he's doing. There's so much turnover in that administration. They're all crazy. They're sending us off a cliff. And they ran with it, and it worked really well for them.
I don't know how well it worked for them when we actually one day have a real investigation about 2020. But we don't have Danny Grand on just because of his looks. We have him on because he is also known as Maga Man. And Danny Mend actually raised a really good point. He does that every once in a while, which was anybody else would have worked out a deal. You yourself, Danny, which I love, came under persecution during COVID when you set up a synagogue in your house and you fought back, and the DOJ has taken up your case. And I think it's exceptional what you did. You are a MAGA man by doing that. You are a patriot.
I think, a couple of things come to mind. One thing about, you talk about Trump and then the big, beautiful bill. I kept thinking about testicular fortitude. The guy's got balls of steel. I mean, he stood up to the regime. He stood up to everyone who you called the man, they, them. I mean, the establishment. And he's just ripping them all into pieces bit by bit. And they're crying and complaining about it. He then leveraged the richest man in the world. The guy just doesn't back down. You mentioned investigations, all the other things. he's been through so much and he's never going to stop because it's just his nature. He's a caffeinated person and he's just going to be that way. That's one thing. The big, beautiful bill. I mean, this is really about American pride, right? To me, it's an opportunity to see people who grew up my age, 30, 40, 50-year-old people, let's say, they're looking around. They're like, where did America go? Where did my America go? It just disappeared off the face of the earth. And I've seen so many people, and they're confused by MAGA because they don't really understand. It's a little bit, they call it populist. I don't give a crap what they call it. Here's really what I think it is. I saw a bumper sticker the other day, and it said on it, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm an American. And this is the guy that is voting for Trump through and through and doesn't give a damn what the media has to say. I mean, did anybody listen to Hakeem Jeffries today? Did anybody know what he said? Tell me. Give me one line. I beg anybody. Get me one word. Nobody knows. He's worthless. So, the guy just doesn't back down. And he's just a force of nature. And I just love him. He's really bringing back American pride. He's bringing back people who are like, where did my America go? Here we are. America's back. We're kicking ass. And as long as we keep another, let's say, MAGA Republican in the White House over the next few, 4, 8, 12 years, we're gonna make this thing work. We're gonna right the wrongs and right the ship.
Well said. And Mend, I'm going to go to you first on this because you brought this up already, but I think it's also extremely important, right? We have the lowest gas prices, except in California, since holiday weekend gas prices since 21. Just so people know, in California, it doubled on us almost. But Sarah Snyder was interviewing Debbie Wasserman Schultz on CNN. This is CNN, mind you, men. And she said gas prices are down and economic indicators are decent. Brand new jobs report that came out shows that it's much better than expected, and border crossings are down. I love how she used the words down. I mean, non-existent. And now Trump's mega spending bill looks like it's going to be passed by Republicans. How do you Democrats fight back with the wins that Trump can tout? And her response was, well, it depends on how you define wins. That was the best she had, man.
This is the same lady that when they broke the Twitter files and Matt Taibbi, who's an award-winning journalist, went to testify before Congress. Bethy Wasserman Schultz, what she decided to do was attack the messenger and called him a fake journalist, didn't attack him on any of the merits of the reporting that the guy was doing, to his own peril. I mean, the mainstream media shut that guy out. He's basically surviving off of Substack these days. He's doing, the independent journalism route. And about fuel prices, California just voted to raise tax on fuel. So fuel here is going up. Yay. California's increasing the prices of fuel while the rest of the country is getting it for nothing.
They will drive the electric cars and they will like it. I mean, it's ridiculous. I was in California recording a song a few months ago. And I remember I was getting the taxi cab with these guys in California. I'm like, my God, man, I'm like by the airport. The gas is $7.50. How do you guys deal with it? He goes, well, we love Gavin Newsom. He's doing a great job around here, and everybody should just be driving electric. Okay. I'm like, holy crap. I better shut up before this guy rolls me out of the car.
I love Danny Grand. And, Danny was one of those people where I was able to be a predictor of many of my arguments, as I've spoken about with Mend about DeSantis. And I kept on seeing with every persecution and prosecution. And it wasn't just with Trump. I was looking at his supporters get stronger and stronger and stronger. And when you look at this big, beautiful bill, I want you to put this in perspective. Ron Johnson, when he became the leader of the House, that took like 2.5 days. It was discombobulated. Everybody's fighting back and forth. This bill went from the House. They tweaked it in the Senate, goes back to the House. I think it's a correct statement to say this is 100% today the party of Trump.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that, but I think it's been that for a while. Even the groups that are splinter groups within the GOP that are trying to push back, as we talked about in our kind of short emergency, whatever you want to call that episode we did yesterday when Hakeem was in the middle of his diaper rant. We saw the Freedom Caucus say, we're going to throw a bunch of roadblocks, but then ultimately fell in line. I think this is not just Trump's party. I think this is Trump's country at this point. I think we're in a position where even the people who dislike Trump, you said something about this the other day, and I think it rings true. Even the people who dislike Trump, consciously or subconsciously, understand that he is taking the country in a different direction, that he is willing to try things that have never been done before, or that haven't been done in a very, very long time, and certainly haven't been done the way he's doing them. he is willing to do some stuff that politicians, traditional politicians, are not willing to do, which is say, you are going to be uncomfortable for a minute because in the long run, you are going to win something far better than the short term comfort. And it's different than when you look at someone like Jimmy Carter, who says, oh, the great malaise, you all need to change yourselves, you're the problem. He doesn't say that. He says there is a problem. And the only way to go through this, I'm going to quote the Shawshank Redemption, and pardon my French here, you have to crawl through a river of shit to come out clean on the other side. And he said, we're willing to do it because the country is worth doing it for. And even the people who dislike him now are looking at their pocketbooks, except in California, looking at gas prices and looking at everything else that's happening. Grocery prices are falling and saying, I think this guy actually is not doing it because of ego, at least not completely. He's not doing it just because he wants a win. He's not doing it because he's an authoritarian, insane person. He actually took the time to not sit on a yacht and count his billions, but instead said, I am going to dedicate myself, at least for a time, to public life because I think I can make the country better. And it works.
9 years of Trump years is like dog years. And it truly is. I mean, we forget everything that's happened in the last 9 years. And the reason I bring that up is because the House was in shambles last year when Matt Gaetz did that moronic rebellion. And I called it a moronic rebellion at the time. And people were saying to me, oh, how dare you say that? He did a great thing. He's a patriot. And I was like, if you're going to do something, have a plan in place, right? Be like Hannibal Smith from the A-Team. Have an actual plan and love it when it comes together. He had no plan, man. And right now, what we're witnessing, the betting markets, if you looked earlier this week, there was no way they thought this bill would get passed on July 3rd, right before July 4th. So I think that's exceptional.
The passing of the bill is a huge win for the American people. And thank God that the administration, Trump in particular, ignored Matt Gaetz on a lot of issues, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson and all of those people that were paid or out there, advocating for Iran, for Qatar. He ignored them all, tuned them all out, and he's doing what needs to be done. The only way that we could really put this in clear terms, especially going into 4th of July weekend, is Trump and his team are kicking ass and taking names. It is unbelievable what they've done so far. There's a lot of work yet to be done, but they are doing a fantastic job. And kudos to him for getting that thing over the finish line. Nobody thought Mike Johnson was going to be able to rally the troops in Congress after the Senate made all those changes to it, and they still got it done. Now we could continue cut waste, and bring in more economic stimulus, more countries, more companies investing in America, building America. Yes, we can do it here. Americans are willing to do it here. And we realize that we can't afford to do it in China. We can't afford to outsource all of our vital resources to a country that is hostile towards us.
As a storyteller, my trade, I am a screenwriter. And every once in a while, I'm asked to write a screenplay about a real person, a biopic, if you will. And every once in a while, in doing so, I sit back in my chair and I say out loud to the person I'm writing about, despite them not being in the room, you knew I was going to write a script about you someday because this is such a perfect third act. How did you know I needed you to reconcile with your wife or whatever? Trump is basically that on steroids. And so the narrative of Trump is something that it's so laden with symbolism. Think about what he just did. The big, beautiful bill passes, and it passes not just according to his deadline, which is already good enough, but his America First big, beautiful bill falls on Independence Day. That is symbolism on steroids. And the idea that right now America is celebrating these wins, even the people who don't necessarily want to do it in public, they are secretly saying America's back a little bit, even if they don't want to admit it. They know in their heart of hearts that that is true.
We're living in two Americas right now. There's literally two different versions of America being lived. There are those that are pro-America, proud to be Americans. I took my dog for a walk yesterday, and public streets, so not even in front of people's houses. I'm talking about one of the thoroughfares, the street that gets you to the streets. In front of every single palm tree, someone went out and put an American flag up and down the avenue. And this is not the city. This is people doing it. Outside on our street, every single house has a flag out. We have multiple flags out. So there are those in America that are pro-America, that are proud Americans, that are loving the way the country's going. We're finally getting back on our feet, regaining control of our country and regaining our security and our independence. Then there are those that are miserable. Percent of Republicans are proud Americans, and only 34% of Democrats. Most of them just want to burn the country down. They're miserable living at home in their wealthy mom's basements, and they have no idea what they're doing. They have no purpose in life. They have no religion in life. So their only religion is Antifa and riots and burn things down and social justice for everything but for their own people. It's for everybody else. So let him be miserable. Who cares?
Maga Man, I love when Men goes on one of his rants. It's one of my favorite things. But the other day I brought up President Trump always uses his political capital. I've never seen a political figure use their political capital as much as he has on something he believes in. And he believed in Mike Johnson when other people didn't. Remember, Mike Johnson was not the popular choice, and
Maga Mike.
Trump saw something in it. We saw it. We witnessed it. We saw what people said, Danny. And there's something to be said for Trump this time around, especially picking the right people, but also staying with the right people. And he did that, Danny, I think, with with Mike Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, people were calling him MAGA Mike. He was a hero, and then he started to do some things that people didn't like so much, and they're like, "Oh no, he's bad. He's not the right guy. We don't want him. Get him out of here." But Trump's like, "No, no, no. Him and Thune, another one. You know, we're going to stick with him. We're going to stick with him." I think he's made some better decisions this time around with his personnel, but he's not perfect. He still makes mistakes with some calls and some people, but he's a human being. I mean, Trump to me is the kind of guy that never like backs down to a challenge. For example, the big beautiful bill that they passed today, it's going 3 o'clock in the morning and the thing wasn't going forward. So he's on the phone with these people. He's like, so, you're up for re-election, or you're not, but you will be because I'm going to make you resign if you don't sign the bill now. I'm sure his hard day included like making 850 phone calls. What do you mean you're flipping out? You're flipping out? I'm going to flip out on, this is really him. You talk about burning political capital. He's literally willing to burn down every one of these people and their careers. You better sign the damn thing. I love him. Behind the scenes, he's a nutcase. And that's what I love about the guy. He's very measured, actually. People don't realize that he's, they call him, oh, he's thin-skinned, and he's always chiming back and yelling at people and calling everybody names. And his names, by the way, nobody denies he has the best names. He comes up with the best names for people. Leaking Diane Feinstein, Leaking Diane. Come on. Anyway, I could go on for days about Trump. What else?
We don't want you going on for days. This is a July 4th special. And go on. I want to move on just a little bit because Danny just brought up something that's extremely important to bring up that nobody again realizes, because the past 9 years have been like a Star Trek and we've been in warp speed. It was a year ago that we had a president that wasn't awake, right? That wasn't on a phone at 3 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon. He was literally awake for 3 hours. And we know this to be 100% true at this point. No speculation. This is what's going on. And we could finally celebrate that we're awake as a country. There's something special. You could feel it. Like men shared walking around seeing the American flags. I'm not going to see that where I live. So, man, I'm so grateful that you shared that's what's happening in your area. I really am, because I don't see it. I live in the other America, as you're referring to. And go on, there's something so special about the fact that we have a president that's awake right now. He's awake. He'll be awake probably for the next 72 hours.
This is, by the way, something that has come up many times when you speak to people who work within the administration. And by the way, some people who also have admitted that they are not fans of Trump when they are asked still admit this. He is constantly working. This is their words, tireless. He's nonstop. He's obsessive. He doesn't shut off. So some people look at it as a crazy thing, like Danny was saying, guys constantly like the Energizer Bunny, but it's true. He is constantly doing stuff. He's willing to make the phone calls himself. He's willing to jump into the fray. He's not sending out minions to go do stuff when he knows the hammer needs to drop. He is the hammer. And he knows that that old adage of like, buck stops here. He lives that through and through and through. He'll go play golf. And while he's playing golf, this is something else that has come out in many interviews. While he's playing golf, he's still taking phone calls. He's still closing deals. He's still having conversations with people all over the world. So it's not like what Biden used to do when he would, I don't know, call a lid before noon, or he would constantly be taking trips to Delaware, or
Sleep on the beach.
it was basically he was just out to lunch on a regular basis. We don't have to beat that dead horse into the ground. But we know that's the case. We all saw it, of course, but before it broke wide. And even the other side had to start writing books, Jake Tapper. But what we noticed was every time that Biden fell asleep in the middle of some ceremony or his own speech, they had to write an article about how, and Trump too. Did you see him walk down a ramp? Maybe he also has cognitive whatever. It's like nobody's buying this. The dude is always sharp, always funny. The nicknames that Danny mentioned, he's always got one right off the top of his head. His comebacks were sharp. Everything he wanted to do, even the way he went at people, and you could say crass, you can say not presidential. Okay, well, that's true. We crossed a Rubicon at a certain point, and now all the politicians curse in public. I don't know when it happened, but I noticed it. But okay, that's where we live now. And so the fact that he suddenly was like, you're a crook, you're a this, you're that. Like, okay, that's who he is. But his mind was always working, and we see exactly what happened here with the big beautiful bill. He was on the phone with everybody into the wee hours of the night as Hakeem was droning on and on. He was making sure this thing got done.
You know, man, he brings up an interesting point, and it's something that people used to say to me, and they used to bring this up quite often about presidential, right? And my response to them is, look at what presidential has gotten us. It's gotten us into wars that we can't get out of. It's cost us trillions of dollars, lost American lives in battle. That's what presidential got us. It got us somebody like George Bush making books about his own paintings of soldiers that were maimed and injured in the Iraq War. That's what presidential got us. So I'm okay with the non-presidential. I'm okay with John Fetterman wearing a hoodie right now. Totally cool with that, man. I don't care if we change the landscape of how we perceive things, as long as it's America first and we're not dying in other countries and some curse words happen. God bless.
Fetterman in his sweatshirts, I don't know about that. That's a little far, but I think Trump could have actually gotten a lot more done if he was a little bit more presidential. And I don't mean by actions. What I mean is just to blunt the teeth of all the fools that talk about him being this thin-skinned guy and all that other stuff.
I feel like if Trump had tried to act like a standard issue politician, the movement would never have lined up behind him. His success wasn't in spite of his authenticity. I think it was because of it.
The reason why Trump is so raunchy and badass is because he just says what he's going to do, and then he does it. And everybody's like, wait, you can't do that. You have to kind of dress it up and make it all pretty and everything. And that's why Trump doesn't give a damn. And that's what makes him great and unique. I love at 3:00 in the morning cracking up when he's calling Hakeem Jeffries hot air Jeffries, or when he called Thomas Massey Rand Paul Jr. Come on, the stuff is amazing. What politician ever made you laugh so much? He's the shits and giggles president. He's got my vote in 2028 and in 2032. Mark it on the calendars.
Okay, let's move on a little bit. I think the importance of today is we no longer live under a tyrannical government. If you follow the law, you don't have to worry. If you're here legally, you don't have to worry. If you follow the Constitution, you don't have to worry. To the people that are listening and that are going to be listening for this July 4th special, I want people to have these arguments. There's a Mend in every group. There's a Golan in every group. There's a Maga Man in every group. The difference is, after every phone conversation that Mend and I had arguing about DeSantis, we spoke the next day. Okay, that's what separates us, is that we could get into these discussions and debates and then talk tomorrow. And I don't want anybody ever coming away from this thinking, I hate these people or I love these people. I don't want you fanboying or anti-fanboying us. I want you to just say, they might have raised some good points. I like them. I'll continue to listen to them. And so no rehashing. Today we celebrate that this 10-year hell is over. And the reason I say 10 years is because that's when he got off the escalator, and that's when the hell really started, right? That's when the Steele dossier and everything started. It's July 4th, barbecue time. Golan, I'm curious, though, on a side note, I love movies. Mend also likes movies. You just can't remember the names of the people in it or the name of the movie. I was discussing this with somebody on the phone before. Jerry Bruckheimer, who's a true patriot of an American, probably the best producer. It's amazing that he hasn't gotten his due. And I would love if Trump celebrated his movies because they're so American. And we're missing that right now. You as a screenwriter, we're missing those pro-American movies.
Yeah, I don't know if we're missing them as much as we think we are. Every once in a while, even these days, we still get a Top Gun Maverick that really unites by the way, both sides of the aisle and really celebrates America. We lost one thing in particular that I think I would like to point out, which is the sports movie, which to me was the most Americana, like really celebrating the spirit of America. That's one thing we're missing, and part of that is because of the way the streamers work, the way box office works these days. They just don't make this stuff anymore. You're talking about the Hoosiers. You're talking about the Field of Dreams. You're talking about the Rockies, and even younger things like the Sandlot. You felt camaraderie. One of the things that you saw, like you were just talking about, there's this guy in every group. There's this guy in every group. Those movies always celebrated. Remember the Titans, etc. They always celebrated different people coming together in a common cause. So those are the movies, the Americana movies that to me I really miss and I would love to see more of. I will say that right now, Skydance, who is purchasing Paramount, they are launching Skydance Sports, and I think they're trying to bring this back. I'm really excited about where they're going to go. And there are a lot of companies out there. Deepak Chopra's son, Gotham Chopra, has Religion of Sports, which is an unbelievable company. You should watch their documentaries. They're great. Varsity Pictures. There are people out there who are really starting to do this again. And all of them are trying to celebrate that American spirit, even if they're not using those phrasings. It's something that all of them are aware of. And you can see by the number of people who are watching these movies, like what just happened with F1, where it just exploded. It really is about that American dynamic, American spirit, American exceptionalism, to borrow a term from men.
Just so everybody knows, I did not bring this topic up with Golan before the show. It's quite impressive that soliloquy you just had about the movies of the past. I never thought about it, but Golan, you're talking about 40 years ago. You're talking about 40 years ago. You're talking about movies from a time when we were 9 years old. And I could add to it. I could add The Goonies, Indiana Jones, and all those movies. We don't have
Mighty
that right
Ducks.
now.
Golan, correct me if I'm wrong. Is Skydance a Chinese-owned company?
No, Skydance is owned by Larry Ellis's son and financed by Larry himself.
Skydance or ByteDance? I am confusing
No,
those two.
ByteDance is different. Skydance
That's
is
where
the
I went
company
wrong.
that finances the Mission Impossible movies, and they're involved with a lot of major, again, American franchises. And Top Gun Maverick was under their umbrella. But yeah, no, you're not wrong, Judah. That we're past that era. You know, even if you think back to, let's say, the early 2000s with movies like Gran Torino, Clint Eastwood still keeping this spirit alive. You know, there are very few things that feel this way.
Since Armageddon, since Jerry Bruckheimer made Armageddon, and I'm
And Jerry
thinking to
Bruckheimer
myself,
made Top Gun too, and
yeah.
Days of Thunder, and a lot of movies that really wave the flag. Michael Bay is someone who believes in this too, and you'll notice in every one of his movies, even the ones that are bad, there's always going to be a shot of planes going overhead and a flag flopping in slow motion as kids run in a field because he wants to evoke that too. A lot of us are missing it.
And men, to his point, when Trump had the military parade, that really was the point. Trump believes in that American exceptionalism you so often talk about and launched. We're missing that. You have children. There's something about looking at the planes, looking at the skies above, and just dreaming and being a kid and seeing movies where you could dream and not being forced to watch DI or any of these things, but just being allowed to be a kid. And I feel terrible for kids of your children's generation, but at least they have movies from 40 years ago.
Well, that's the thing, is that we have a whole movie database here, and we've gone through all of it. Examples of like the Harry Potter movies to the Rocky movies, to Stand By Me, a great one. It's worth mentioning while we're talking about movies today that Michael Madsen, who was in some of my favorite movies, passed away.
And was a friend of mine, by the way.
Was he? I'm sorry for your
Yeah.
loss.
Yeah.
I loved him in every single one of his movies, especially Reservoir Dogs. That was one of my
And one of the best
faves.
sports movies ever made, The Natural.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we have our kids watch the non-woke movies, the good old time movies that we liked watching, classics, fantastic movies and great for kids. So our town has a big parade down at the pier, fireworks,
I
all
love
that
that.
stuff,
Love it.
airplanes flying over and all the good stuff. They roll out everything. And then when that's over, we're having a bike parade on our street, which is something that our street did for the last 25 years, where the kids dress up their bikes in the most patriotic colors and tassels and flags. And then they all come around. We judge it. Then there's a watermelon eating contest, apple bobbing, water slides, grilling, drinking, just celebration. And the street looks fantastic. Everybody's got their flags out. We live in a patriotic pocket of California where people love the country. They love the way of life. It's actually, climate wise, it's the best place to be. It doesn't get better than this. It's the politics that get a little wonky once in a while, but we're loving it here.
Maga Man, I go to you on this because I think about Trump. It's often wild. He will never stop that song, right? By Lee Greenwood. He loves that song. And that really encapsulates Trump to the bone. I mean, it's just, he will never stop playing that song. And it's a brilliant song and it will resonate for generations.
I was thinking about the Jamaican bobsled team in Cool Runnings also. That was a pretty cool movie. I remember as a kid, my parents. But in reference to what you're saying about Lee over there, when Trump came out with that song as one of his songs, I said, that's the song I've been saying all along. When he first didn't have it for a year or 2 or 3 years, I said, the proud to be an American song, proud to be an American song. That's the perfect song for you. Until I wrote Maga Nation. That's an even better song for him. It's out there if you want to listen to it. Maga Nation by Maga Man. But besides the point, no plugs. Yeah. It's going to be an amazing 4th of July in University Heights, Ohio, because of Mayor Brennan, the scoundrel leftist that we have as a mayor who just outlawed fireworks. Says you can't blow up fireworks in the town anymore. So there's going to be like protests and riots tomorrow in our neck of the woods, telling the mayor that he's no good and he's got to go.
I love it that they outlawed fireworks. There's some of the places out here in California too, and what they sell instead is trash-filled confetti. I mean, these things pollute. I mean, you talk about these environmentalists that don't want to pollute anything. You pull the little popper and it just sprays confetti everywhere. You know how hard that is to clean up and how bad that is for the environment? It all goes down the sewers. It's just terrible. These people are morons.
Go on. Me, for one, of having lived near the fires, I am okay with no fireworks. I'm also glad because it makes my dog go insane, the fireworks. I have to give him medication tonight. I know a lot of people do. Most people do not know this. July 5th is the biggest day at the pound because so many dogs run away from home because of the fear of the noise. So it's funny, before I was a dog owner, I never really cared. And when my dog goes crazy, you hear all the dogs going crazy. So I will be drugging my dog up tonight to the max. But there's something extremely special about right now, what we're witnessing in this time. And Men brought up a lot of stuff, and I'm happy he did, because it brings up the point. Remember in Trump's first term, his first year, he got rid of ISIS. Everybody was getting bonuses. Things were looking up. And then the impeachments, the Mueller report, everything we've had to live through as a country. And it's such a good feeling right now to not have those chains around us. As these things are getting passed, we're not worried tomorrow he's going to be indicted on something. What a feeling of freedom that is, Golan.
Yeah, it's nice simply because it's hard to get things done when you're constantly distracted. I say this as a parent who has my office at home and 2 kids running around, and it's summer. And I know that every time I'm in the flow, again, I'm a writer, so I'm sitting here writing a script. I'm in the zone. I feel like this scene is going to totally flow. And then my kids run into the room. My son starts jumping on the couch behind me. My daughter starts asking me questions and it breaks my concentration. I love them very much, but it's hard for me to get back in that zone again. And I think that's kind of where the country has been for a while. We really want to just get things done. We want to make the country better. We want to fix the problems that we've got. We want to improve the things that are already on the up and up. And every 5 seconds, our kids are running into the room and distracting us in the form of indictments, in the form of impeachments, in the form of accusations, in the form of investigations, in the form of all this other stuff. And it's like, well, how do you expect things to go if you are constantly throwing up roadblocks in the form of distractions? And as if it's not bad enough, the very people who are doing that then complain, you see, he got nothing done. That's like tying my hands behind my back and then saying, how come you're not hitting me? And I'm so glad that it feels like Trump now is in the flow. He's in the zone. And each win feels like it's a momentum to the next win. And this big, beautiful bill is a great example of this. This is like the hitting a new zenith. And I don't think this is going to be the end of the wins.
Well said. And I got to say something too, because I love Men. I've known Men for most of my adult life. And we often go back and forth about the Israel Gaza thing. And Men's really been getting me to say, let's have faith, let's have trust, and mend with all of these things that he's accomplishing here. Foreign leaders are looking at this going, oh my God, we really can't mess with this guy now. He doesn't have all these other things. So we're looking at the domestic policies that he's just on this amazing winning streak, but it's going to roll over into foreign policy too, men. So I want to thank you for that.
Yeah, you know, and just to be clear, what I said was have faith and trust that Trump is going to do the right thing when it came to Iran and it came to Hamas and it came to crushing those guys. There was nothing to indicate that the guy was all of a sudden going to abandon Israel and abandon what was right and abandon our hostages, including Americans, to try to make some deal with some third world countries. A lot of people were speculating on that. So yes, did push back. I always thought the guy definitely has his head on straight.
Danny, closing us up on this topic, Danny's an observant Jew. I have amazing respect for the way he lives his life. I think this is something Trump also has an amazing respect for, which is religious people. And he took the side of religious people in our country, of people that believe in God. And there's something remarkable about that. That's not easy, defending people of religion. I mean, no matter what it is, Danny, he's had religious Jews and Christians backs. How does that make you feel?
I mean, I'm the perfect person to ask that question to if you want a positive. I mean, I literally filed a case in federal court that got picked up by the Department of Justice because of a executive order that was passed by Trump for combating anti-Semitism. And that's the main reason why it got picked up. I mean, I've got to get on Trump's case a little bit because he kind of stole my lawyer too. He liked him so much. They called him up and they said, you think you should come work for us to take over the department? I was like, you got to be kidding me, Trump. But that's okay. Now I got him in the inside, which is even better in a way. Greatest 6 months in the history of presidents and the presidential history, the greatest 6 ever. Everybody knows it. And this is what I'm doing on the 4th of July. I'm enjoying the moment because it's a beautiful moment. You got to own it. It's all timed out perfectly. He's the master of that, by the way. Golan alluded to, he said it before. Like he plans things so that they time out perfectly and they're very relevant.
Judah, I want to say one thing about what you said to Danny real quick. One thing I love, as I am not an observant Jew. I am a traditional Jew. I'm an Israeli and I served in the army, but I'm not someone who is observant. I light the candles every Sabbath, but that's about the extent of it. But I love the way that Trump deals with faith in the United States. He doesn't pretend to be a preacher or a theologian or someone who even goes to church every Sunday or anything else. And yet he defends faith in a way that is not only more authentic and harder than most politicians do, but honestly, it's better than most politicians do because I know he's not simply using religion as a prop, right? He's not just pandering to people with fake moralism. He says, I am what I am. You know who I am. I've been in the public eye for such a long time. I'm not going to pretend that I'm a saint over here, but I understand that the country was built on the back of faith, family, and freedom. And those 3 things I'm willing to protect with my dying breath. And that is how it feels. So I know he's not doing it to make me think that he is more righteous than he is. He's doing it because he just knows this is part of what America is. And he knows that's part of what he has to defend.
I'll expand on that and just say that he does the right thing. It's right to stand up for Christians. They've been persecuted in this country under the previous administration again and again and again, while Muslims get a pass. You know, anytime they mention anti-Semitism, they also say Islamophobia, which is a made-up word. Why do you need to tie the two? They're not the same. Most Jews are being attacked by Muslims and Muslims are not being attacked by Jews. So like all of that stuff, he just threw it all out. He said, let's get rid of it. And he's standing up for what's right.
Well said, everybody. And the one thing I could for sure say is if anybody would enjoy this conversation, I think it would be somebody like President Trump, because I don't think he minds people disagreeing with him. When you look who he surrounds himself, remember Marco Rubio, who could go down as one of the best Secretary of States ever, is doing a remarkable job, and he was a little Marco. And Trump brought him back into the fold and raised him up. Marco paid his dues, and he's doing amazing work. And this is who Trump is. This is what Trump does. He doesn't mind. And I know there's this MAGA thing. There's a certain segment that's very unforgiving. That's not who Trump is. Trump is extremely forgiving. He had Joe Scarborough at the White House, okay? He had Bill Maher at the White House. That's who Trump is. So if you look up the Trump, sadly, some people do a little too much in a certain way, realize he's not a god, he's a human that's extremely forgiving. And it's one of his biggest attributes that often gets neglected.
You know, Lincoln had famously his team of rivals. That was a big thing. Doris Kearns Goodwin wrote a biography about it. That's the thing that Spielberg based his movie on. But that was a very famous thing where he surrounded himself with political enemies, people who would run against him, people who insulted him, people he had looked down on him, and all of that. He brought them in deliberately because he said, if I can win the argument, if I can convince you of something, I know I'm on the right side of history here. And so he would sit down with people who had different ideological bents than he did. And I know people may laugh at the comparison, but I think Trump does that too. J.D. Vance called him some of the nastiest things you can possibly call someone, and he is his vice president. Little Marco, who also went after him, is his Secretary of State. The idea is similar to what Lincoln did. And to me, that shows guts. That shows strength. That shows, what did you call it, Danny? Testicular fortitude. I'm in.
I just want to end with this. There's going to be.
Wait, I got a question. I want to ask you guys what you think. Does Trump get onto Mount Rushmore? Yay or nay? I say yay. What do you guys think? There's nothing more 4th of July than Mount Rushmore. Come on.
I think so. I think it's going to happen.
You know, Ben Stein brought that up the other day on his show, and he said that
Did he?
he believes, yeah, I know. He believes that Trump just belongs on Mount Rushmore. He also said that he believes he's up there with, if not more than Washington and Lincoln. And Ben is not for a hyperbolic type of person. He's extremely measured in his thoughts. So I take it from somebody like him when I look at that. But I just want to end it like this. There's news that's still going on, of course. There's still wars that are going on. There's still violence it's going on. But there's something special about this July 4th. We could just break from the news for a day. The world lived without us for thousands of years. It could live without us for 24 hours, where we spend time with our families, going down the streets like Mend is going to be going tomorrow, doing the celebrations that Golan will be doing with his family, what Danny will be doing, and the news will still be there tomorrow. Just take 24 hours. I want to thank everybody for doing this. I want to thank you guys especially for doing this with us. I want to thank Golan and Mend for doing this every day for the past 38 or 39 days, no matter what. Men took a couple of days of vacation. He's allowed. But I really want to thank you. When I started doing this, I was talking with Golan for 2.5 years, 3 years of a project that we could work on together. And we finally decided to go for it. I'm forever grateful, Golan, that we met. I just really want to thank you. And I want to thank Men for always being a friend, for always believing in me, and for always forcing me to go further, to take the next step. And I pray that everybody has those people in their lives. From the bottom of my heart, I mean that. Mend has been my biggest fan, my biggest advocate. I've come up with some of the craziest, stupidest ideas. And Mend has a list of domain names that I've said to him to get. Okay, Mend, I got a great idea. Do this domain name. That's what real friendship is. He always would get the domain name. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And Danny, it's great to have you in our lives. You are a joy. You are a friend. You are a great American. And for everybody listening, have fun today. Be with your families. Don't get into arguments. And with that, I wish you nothing but joy and happiness, the joy and happiness that we have, because we're all going to talk tomorrow.
The best way to deal with an angry American hater is to show them what kind of great time you're having on 4th of July. Go out, be proud.
Well said. Go on your final thought. Get it out.
This is a great day to spend with your family and your friends, to not worry about arguing, to not go online, to not try and get yourself into that rage tweet storm or doom scrolling. Put all of those things aside, get outside, touch some grass, get some sunshine and vitamin D into you, get some hot dogs on the grill, drink a beer, pour some out for me because I'm in Barcelona. Have a great time. This day is built specifically for this. Enjoy yourselves.
Danny.
Why don't Americans knock on doors on the 4th of July? Because freedom rings.
We're not going to do better than that.
Okay, everybody. Have a good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are. And God bless you all.